Hello. God damn it. Oh my god, first fucking recording after so many months. I fucked it up on the first word. Hello, welcome. Oh, still fucking it up.
You fucking dipshit. That is not what a fetus looks like, okay? It's a clip of cells at 12 weeks. And it does not look like that. It's a clip of motherfucking cells. No hands are shown through that time. You're just a white fucking privileged racist fucking male that doesn't stand for women's rights. Get the fuck out of here. Fucking dipshit. And get that camera out of my face, either. Fuckwit.
We are calling the police, ma'am.
You are fucking white male privileged assholes.
I'm calling the police right now.
What you are is a racist motherfucker as well. How dare you fucking do this kind of shit, asshole?
You're being videotaped. We will return this to the police.
Go ahead. Go right the fuck on ahead, you fucking sexist, misogynistic motherfuckers.
Hello, welcome. Today I'm looking at whether SJWs, social justice warriors, have some kind of mental health disorder. It might sound like I'm being cheeky and just wanting to insult them, but I think there's some mileage in this theory, and I'll take you through it. First, I want to set out a picture of mental health in the UK. At the starting level, we'll look at general low-level mental health conditions. If we add those up, we find that there's 25.7% of the population affected with these lower order mental health conditions. Now obviously there's generalised anxiety at the top and mixed anxiety depression at the bottom, and depression at the top as well. So there's going to be some crossover in these stats. The total is less than 25%. So not a huge amount, I don't think. If we step up into more serious conditions, estimates for bipolar disorder, psychotic disorder, personality disorder, these are usually measured over a person's lifetime. So we don't get, like with the anxiety and depression, we don't get figures per year. But it's going to give us a pretty good guide of how much of this there is at any given time. All combined, that's 8.4% of the population suffering with those, which if we add it to the lower order mental health disorders brings us to 34.1% of the population. Dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, affects 2% of people in Europe and America. That brings the total so far to 36.1%. On top of this, 1% of British children are autistic. 0.13% of British children born with Down syndrome. And now we can add in the bad guys. Lifelong narcissistic personality disorder is estimated to be 1% of the general population. 0.5% of the population of paedophiles. Contentious figure, but it's the best one that I could find. That was published in the Telegraph. There are psychopaths among us. Nobody really knows how many psychopaths there are. Dr. Robert Hare said there might be up to 20-25% of them in the population, but he's stuck with a figure of 1%. So somewhere between 1 and 20% of the population are psychopaths. This brings us to a total of 39.73%, assuming psychopathy at the lowest level. Looking at these figures, the only mentally ill people in the UK who have an actual shortfall in terms of empathy and conscience are the paedophiles and psychopaths. Everybody else in these stats will have, in varying degrees, normal conscience and empathy. So even taking, if we say that psychopaths are between 1 and 20%, even at the outside, 80% of the population have conscience and empathy. And I think this bears particular relevance when we talk about something like racism or bigotry. Anxiety doesn't affect that. Antisocial personality, yeah, maybe. So we add another 3.3% in there. Borderline personality, maybe. Someone who's suffering post-traumatic stress might do something that you wouldn't expect of someone with normal conscience and empathy. But by and large, we're looking at a figure somewhere maybe over 90%. There can't possibly be a majority presence of bigotry, especially not shallow bigotry, the type that means you'll hate someone just for having a different coloured skin. There is grouping behaviour, of course, and people conform to all kinds of grouping behaviour, so you might stick to your own colour when you might have a mistrust. That doesn't mean bigotry is present. If you've got conscience and empathy, you can be reasoned with. And I think this shows, this is borne out by other statistics from the UK. A hate-based political party in the UK will very rarely reach into the hundreds of thousands of votes. You look at this is the general election results for the British National Party going back 34 years. The BNP party, the British National Party, is our racist party. Now, I don't really know if they're truly racist or if they just want to get rid of all immigrants, but there's a pretty fine line in there, and as far as most people in the UK are concerned, the BNP is our racist element. You will notice in 2010 they've got 500,000 votes and more candidates than they ever had before. I suspect there's an aberration protest vote because of the credit crunch. You look at all the other election results, 192,000 is the absolute highest, with pretty much sod all in every other general election. If you look at the number of candidates, that's a really good guide of how successful or not a party is. A successful party will field a candidate in every area. A less successful party will start to put up paper candidates in areas they know they're not going to win, and the person they put up to it isn't up for the job. They haven't got the time to do it, they don't want to do the campaigning. It's just to plump up the party, make it look more successful than it is. We look at the BNP, they can hardly even field candidates. They've got nobody standing for them, which is the first major indication that this is a failed political endeavour. Our hate-based crime statistics are particularly low as well, compared to any country. Hardly anybody gets attacked in the UK based on the colour of their skin. It's a few thousand. It said it's most notable in London, but far beyond any other part of the UK, there's like 3,500 cases per year. Everywhere else, race-based attacks virtually drop off the scale. So let's have a look at the way SJWs behave. Anybody who's tried to debate an SJW will find that they cannot be reasoned with. It's almost the defining characteristic. They use no rationale when expressing their beliefs. All you get is rage and insults. I'll say I have actually attempted to debate them many times and they simply refuse to engage. The impression I get is that they only have a belief in I'm right because my feelings tell me I'm right, and that's the gold standard. And there's no room for shades of grey in their outlook. There's no signs of intellectual development or growth or bridge building. They don't compromise. There's no ability or even attempt to understand opinions that differ from their own. They're much more interested in deplatforming and silencing differing opinions. They receive contrary opinions as if those opinions were a threat to them personally. They even react to facts that they don't like as if the facts are some sort of personal insult. There are definitely shades of narcissism. There's a genuine lack of empathy. There's a strange mix of virtue signalling and antisocial behaviour, which of course is hypocritical, but they seem to lack the self-awareness to know about this hypocrisy. They cannot communicate effectively. They lack self-control. Their anxieties spiral out of control. I've seen public intellectuals claim that SJW types are right-brain thinkers, in that everything is emotionally based. They don't tend to move in the rationale side of their brain. That's put forward as a reason why they can't engage with facts and rationale, but I think it's a little more than that. I do find there's an almost standardised behaviour among SJWs. The white ones broadcast their white guilt, and they tend to be anti-white to quite a racist degree. They tend to be anti-success, and they're cultural Marxists. They won't draw a distinction between a theocratic form of population control and an advanced set of morality supported by laws, philosophy and moral advances made over a substantial amount of time. That will literally put a Bronze Age religion against an advanced liberal democracy and say that they're equal. They tend to be against free speech. They value their own opinions over the facts under discussion. They resist expert analysis, and they prefer instead what has been termed a malignant form of egalitarianism. This idea that anybody can be an expert because we have the internet. To some extent that's true, but to another extent, an actual expert in the field will know what is the most respected, peer-reviewed and the most cutting-edge information in a given field. Someone on the internet doesn't necessarily know that, doesn't necessarily even come across it while they're doing their research, and they can go down their own biased rabbit holes, and there's almost definitely what happens to SJW researchers. They're only really interested in confirmation bias. You come across the hypocritical aspect of them, no racism, and then they're blatantly anti-white. No violence, no Nazism, and then they're blatantly, or the Antifa group at least, are blatantly violent. These double standards are more easily seen if you start to pull out the things that they say about black people. What if white people did this? If the white people did well at the Oscars, and we had a hashtag white pride about that and celebrated it, the SJWs would be up in arms. But that's exactly what minorities do. If we had a Music of White Origin award, SJWs would be up in arms, but that's what minorities do. If we had a student union body called the White Man Society, SJWs be up in arms. But again, that's what minorities do. Minorities tend to make exclusive groups that are barred entry to white people, whereas white people's systems and societies don't have those barriers. You can join in. You can do well. You can win awards if you're black in a white person's society. It's the only apartheid is with the actual minority-only groups, and SJWs will never see the double standard there. Furthermore, they won't defend their own position. They just say, I'm right, you're a racist. I'm right, you're xenophobic. They've created a hysteria, a politically correctness-driven hysteria that sweeps entire subjects out of the political arena, and I think this has had a very negative impact on British culture. There are things that our politicians can't talk about. Our politicians are watching what they say all the time, lest they get hounded out of office. The SJWs are driving the hysteria, but the media are playing into it. The more the media can stir people's passions, the more they will. That's what gets them noticed. That's what gets them their dollar. But it's gone crazy. They're always playing gotcha journalism. People are getting fired for using unfortunate terminology, making mistakes. You know, you look at their entire history, there's not a single piece of racism or bigotry. One of the Change UK MPs, I don't like her. It's almost like I'm glad she's getting slammed. But she was trying to say minorities, but she said people with a funny tinge. It was it's a classic example of unfortunate terminology.
A white working class woman finds life hard enough. A BME, working class woman, and this is the gender aspect, will find it even harder. But it's not just about colour. I mean, you know, the recent history of the party I've just left suggests that it's not just about being black or a funny, you know, different from the BME community, but the Jewish community.
And of course, SJW types in the media jumped all over that. The feminist thing with Sargon of Akkad, that's big over here. The media are proper latched onto this I wouldn't even rape her tweet. And it's like, you're trying to hang him for saying he wouldn't rape someone. It doesn't even make sense, and yet they won't let it go, this 3-year-old tweet. This is how our media has changed. Where this hysteria over bigotry lies should be debates about nationally important issues, but they're being fogged by the bigotry claims, weaponised bigotry claims. People are taking advantage of it, using it to take down their political opponents. You just have to sling a bit of racist mud and that's it. People get piled out of office, piled out of their jobs. It's dumb, and it's so destructive. It's the main reason why Muslim rape gangs were allowed to operate undisturbed by the law for 30 years over dozens of towns and cities in the UK. Because the authorities were scared to be hounded out of their jobs if they did something about it. And so to say this is culturally damaging is an understatement, really. And I've tried to express this. I've told SJWs, look what you're doing. Look what you're responsible for. Do you not think it's time to turn back? You're scared about the rise of the right. You're always going on about the extreme right, even though they never get more than 300,000 votes. Always going on about that. You have caused more damage than they ever did, well, unless you count Nazi Germany. In the UK, let's say, political correctness and this bigotry hysteria it's insane, and it's being driven by an insane type of person. And I'm going to make a case study now because I have a friend. I've known him for 25 years, not just online. That's 25 real years. I went to university with him. We studied the same course, we were in a lot of the same classes, we were in the same group of friends. Can't say we were the closest two in that group, but he's a good friend. A group of us went to Australia together. I think there were 6 of us that went, and then 2 or 3 others joined us while we were there. Me and him been out drinking countless times. I was there the day he came out as a homosexual. I also knew far fucking before that he was. And I was one of the people who just went, yeah, I know. And now through life and distance, we communicate more on Facebook than anywhere else. He's stuck in the SJW mindset. When I argue with him, I'm like, man, I'm going to save your life. I'm going to open your eyes and snap you out of this. He doesn't engage, just disengages. Oh, I'm going to use him as a case study example. You're probably imagining that we argue a lot. And we kind of do. He'll post something fucking stupid, and I'll point out how fucking stupid it is, and then he goes, piss off, I'm not talking to you. You know, he just shuts down. And after so long of that, he posted this on my timeline, on my wall. How I feel every time you're not being succinct. Brevity is your friend. He's got this thing about if you can't express your point in a small enough, like it's got to be the size of a haiku. If you can't express your opinion in a very small format, then there's something wrong with your opinion. And it's the most fucked up way of looking at it. He's into Twitter, so I think he's been conditioned into this less than 240 characters thing. Well, obviously when I argue with him, I go on for fucking ages, like, there's your facts and figures, if you look what you've done, you're wrong. He doesn't really say anything, he just backs out. So he's put this on here. When someone disagrees with you online and demands you prove your point to their satisfaction by writing a logically sound defence, you can save a lot of time by not doing that. Dudes, I've known you for 10 seconds and enjoyed none of them. I'm not taking homework assignments from you. And this is one of the barriers. They all act the same way. Will not justify their stance, and yet they will broadcast it. And I say to him, if you're going to put your position in a public place, if you're going to mudsling against certain personalities, or if you're going to indulge in white guilt or white racism, I'm going to take you to task for it, and you should defend that. And if you can't, there's something wrong with it. There's something wrong with you. I'll take you through some of the things that have been on his timeline. Most of this comes from one day, bear in mind. He's a Twitter and Facebook fanatic. Here we go. First off, good lord, it's Count Bankruptula. Don't laugh. It's the pinnacle of white culture. He's so fucking racist against his own race. He must be riddled with white guilt. You know what I noticed? You know what I talk about? It's maybe a mental health condition. And my friend does suffer with clinical depression, and he does have anxieties, and obviously you can sort of read into these posts a little bit that he thinks he's neurotic, and he might be. But if you go around thinking that your own race is despicable, what would you expect? Well, change your fucking thinking. Be proud of your fucking race. The internet, electricity, Facebook, these are all inventions by white cultures, by white nations. White nations are the richest, most advanced on earth. It's not all bad. You don't have to sit there and throw in mud about your own race. There's a mixture of good and bad, just like everyone else's. Fuck it. I'm not guilty about the actions of my ancestors. I'm not picking up the tab for them either. There's a kind of show. I mean, this guy, I know because I know him. He does suffer from anxiety and depression. I'm not saying that makes him fucking crazy. It's a very specific type of problem, and it's pretty awful for him. But now he's coming, he sort of broadcasts a little bit of neurosis. He has problems. He's a people pleaser. And I don't see how he's people pleasing. In the UK, the ethnic breakdown of the population is 87% white. 87% white. We only have 13% minorities in this country, and obviously that 13% is broken down into lots of different categories. We've only got 3%, I think only 5% of our population is Muslim. So how is he people pleasing when he's slagging off 87% of the population? That doesn't make any sense to me. People say I'm too nice, too accommodating. I'm not losing that game. Spelt wrong, motherfucker. You can walk all over me till I snap and bury your body in the woods at various locations, having previously hacked your body into tiny pieces. I'm not a fucking idiot. It's probably a quote from a book or something. But obviously he's joking. But like, you know, there's always an element of truth, isn't there? Where somebody starts to show their neuroses, it's like they can relate to this thing. Like, well, this is how I make you feel. This is how you're making me feel. This is how you're making me feel. He's anti-Brexit, of course. He wants to stay in the EU and be run by foreign nationals, unelected bureaucrats, undemocratic and ridiculous institution. And he wants to stay in it, of course he does. He is literally posted, I'm living in a country of bigots and racists and xenophobes. No, you don't. We live in a country where thankfully over half the population realises, or over half the voting population realises, that the EU is a sinister, anti-democratic, protectionist racket of the worst kind, and would be better off without it. So earlier this week, Nigel Farage, leader of the new Brexit party and architect really of the Brexit referendum, was on BBC's Question Time, and he did very well. He was the only Leave person on the panel. Everyone else talked about remaining, supported remaining, or supported a second referendum. Nigel Farage was pretty good. He was really quiet, let them have their say. Then when it was his turn to speak, they shouted all over him, but he still held his own, and he did really well. And now they're saying, you know, it was unfair. The SJWs won't have this. Nigel Farage didn't do well. It was somehow rigged in favour of Nigel Farage for the next episode on the BBC Question Time, just to be 1 hour of Nigel Farage masturbating. Probably more people had watched BBC Question Time if it was, but no, that just doesn't make any sense. And here we have some anti-white. Imagine being so insecure and unsuccessful that the only thing you can be proud of is being born white. It doesn't make sense. It's not like he's genuinely feeling sorry for those players plucking out this idea. I mean, even Well, I say, we've got a very small minority of people who genuinely are racist, genuinely are white supremacists, genuinely want an extreme right wing or a Nazi-style government. There is a small handful, but they're so fringe. They've never been taken seriously. They don't get votes. It's not an issue in the UK. Social media is turning us into thoughtless political extremists. Now, this is some of the fucking hypocrisy. You are behaving like a thoughtless political extremist most of the time, and now you're going to go, oh, look at this. I don't get that. If you have genuine concerns about that, which I do, there really are drawbacks to social media. Social media was predicated on leveraging envy. It's why people on Twitter, well, one of the reasons people on Twitter form mobs so quickly, and they're so vicious and horrible to each other. The character limit pushes you down to short form communication. Now, short form communication is angry communication. If we're angry with someone, we're likely to say fuck off, and that's it. If we like someone, or if we're expressing love, we'll take our time. We'll make a proper declaration about that. It's conditioning. Social media platforms tend to condition the user to pander to the crowd, try and get likes, to be envious of other people's likes, to group conform. If people start thumbing you down, disagreeing, you'll mould yourself more into the group to get the likes back, and into self-competition. Makes people want to compete with the number of likes they had last time, try and get more likes this time. So you do, yeah, people who are not really watching themselves, who lack self-awareness, are just playing this game and becoming conditioned to a sort of pathological state of mind. He's right, there's something to be concerned about. For this guy, my friend, he's got a degree. He's a smart guy. But, like me, I'll take that information on board and I'll be aware, right, I don't use Twitter. I use Facebook, but I could stick to the long-form communication, and I don't post for likes. I post to achieve something, to spread a message. To me, this is big hypocrisy. Saying, oh, look at this, it's terrible, but I'm just going to keep doing it. Here we have a rise of the far right in the EU. Rise of the far right in the EU. Bearing in mind the EU that he wants to stay in. Look at the UK there. It's this plain white. I can't see the stats, not big enough on my screen. What? I think that's 1, does it say 1 to 10%? The brightest colour there is, the least amount of right wing you can get. And he's been moaning about it. You see that big red thing there? That's Poland. I'll tell you a more interesting view of Poland is this map of terrorism inside EU countries. Well, we'll slide this in and have a look. And Poland has none. Why do you think that is? It's because Poland has genuinely a right-wing government who has said no more Muslims. You're not coming in. So, it's not all. Whoa. A small percentage is a bigger and bigger number of people if you let them all in. Do you know what I mean? It's a solution, and it worked. And it's part of the reason why people are going to the far right.
But not one Muslim, because that's just how you guys feel about it.
Good evening, Imran. Thank you for having me. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Islamophobia. It's all about safety. As I said previously, everyone is allowed to apply. Everyone is allowed to submit the documents, ask for a permission, ask for a visa, and then our interior minister will decide if he's needed for our society. The difference between immigration and refugees as a legal difference. You are mixing words. It's very important because the difference is quite big. First of all, refugee is the person who flees to the first safe country by the international law. Immigrant, especially illegal immigrant, is not welcome in Poland. This is what we promised, and these words will be kept. Basically, we are not talking about people who are in need. We are not talking about Muslims. We are talking about a law, international law and Polish law. We don't want any illegal migration in Poland. This is what we promised. This is why our government was elected, and not even one Muslim illegal migrant will come to Poland, ever.
People like my mate are fogging the issues and shouting down concerns over immigration, domestic terrorism, change of our national culture to include rape gangs and Bronze Age blasphemy laws under threat of violence. You know, there's a lot of negative impacts from our recent immigration policies, and people like my mate have contributed to fogging the debate and winding people up so much that there's nowhere else to go but the far right. And then he complains that the far right are gaining traction. It's brainless. It's absolutely stupid. Gay men pose for a photo while being detained at a police station for being homosexuals in Mexico in 1935. Brilliant. Fantastic. We get to go back to 1935 and celebrate the rebellion of a few gay guys in Mexico. What? It's a nice story in as much as, yeah, well done, you plucky lads. You fucking standing up for yourself in really harsh times. But I think my mate thinks he's still there. He thinks society is still like that, and that he's being a revolutionary in your face, standing up for what's right. There's nothing to fight against. It's done. You're not Martin Luther King. You were standing up where in post-emancipation, post-equal rights, post-gay rights, standing up decades later to say, no, you're not achieving anything. This one's about people who make gay jokes. We've got the gay person who looks a bit like the Lady of the Lake in the middle of the picture there. She's knighting her close, straight friend with the privilege of telling homophobic jokes. And there's jealous, straight peasants in the background. I think this is partly how he sees the world. Everyone who's not gay, who's not been privileged by being friends with a gay person, is jealous somehow. Is a miserable mob in the background. He talk about, he wants to express as an anti-bigot, but he is just a bigot. He's obviously fucking bigoted. The privilege of telling homophobic jokes. You know this language use as well, homophobic. That was the first social warrior phobic thing to appear, homophobic. For phobic was an inaccurate way to put it, really. People were never scared of gay people, people weren't scared of homosexuality. Phobic was pretty clever in some ways to reframe the debate in terms of fear, because people don't want to be seen as being fearful, do they? They'd rather be bold and courageous. So, oh, you were scared of it. Oh, no, I'm not scared of it. It was pretty clever, but it's massively inaccurate. And now when it comes round to, you're phobic about everything, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you want to put the brakes on that, Islamophobic. Well, extreme jihadis and fundamental Islamists are fucking dangerous. Phobic is the correct response. Being concerned is the correct response. Doesn't matter how small the minority is. There is a minority there who are out to wage war against British culture, who are out to do dirty shit, including radicalisation and terrorism. They're driving a horrific epidemic of group rape. A dozen guys can be taking it in turns onto a British child. We act like that's not a problem. You call me a racist for talking about that. You're looking at the wrong crime. Which is the bigger crime? Racism or gang raping children? Nobody that pops up and says, you're racist because you want to look into a crime like that has got a decent set of values at all. They're an absolute moron. They're twisted in their outlook if they think that screams of racism are the appropriate response to a specific demographic who are there's only 5% of the population that are Muslims, hardly any here. I think 3 million from Pakistan, something like that, and the rest recent influx from the east, from Syria and places like this. 84% of grooming paedophile gangs are immigrants. 84 fucking percent. And you know what the counterclaim is from SJW types? Well, type 2 paedophilia is 100% white people. And what they mean is type 2 paedophilia is when you shagging your niece or something like that, is this sort of close-knit, dirty secret. What priests do. Most kids that get abused in that way know their attacker. That's what they mean by type 2. I don't know what type gang grooming and raping is, but it's a much more serious fucking crime. There's 12 people in the room. Just multiply it out. There's 12 criminals right there. 1,400 girls got gang raped in Rochdale alone. It's a small town. There's only 10,000 Muslims there. The problem is hugely disproportionate. And when they point to the other problem, which we already have laws and traps, I'm pretty sure we have the sting operations based on baiting, trying to get people to respond to certain profiles on social media. I'm pretty fucking sure there's quite an advanced way of tackling that being undertaken. And all we've got for the grooming rape gangs is 30 fucking years of silence, followed by a little bit of public outcry that we got let down by the authorities. Yeah, we got let down by the authorities. Those girls, it's almost, you can't even put it into words what they let happen to those girls. It's disgusting. It doesn't matter. You know what, even if a racist did come along and say, yeah, I told you to sell them all home, and fucking doing this, it would be the smaller crime. You'd still have to look, you'd have to take your eyes off the racist and look at the fucking gang rape and go, yeah, that's a fucking problem. Of course he's a vegan. And he's like, stop killing us, we aren't your trophies, clothes or medicine, or eating. And most people agree with that. It's a majority sent middle of the road opinion, and honestly, I believe that he believes he's special for thinking this way. Yeah, when's the last time you ate an elephant? Or eating a tiger or gorilla? No, it's specific to trophy hunting, that. Neurotic people have noisier, more chaotic minds, say research. Why is he posting that? Well, A, isn't it fucking obvious? I thought that's what neuroticism actually was, is your fucking mind going on and on and on. And B, what's your point? Point probably, I'm neurotic, I'm suffering, help. I know you're fucking neurotic, there's loads wrong with you if you're an SJW. Hi, I'm Fiona Bruce. Tune into the death of irony tonight when the question, should a person be taken off air for racist comments, will be answered by Nigel fucking Farage on his 33rd appearance on Question Time. Again, bitching and moaning about Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is categorically not a racist. He's highly in the public sphere. People would know. He gets baited and questioned on it over and over and over again, and gets gotcha journalism on an ongoing basis. During the referendum, almost every question asked to him by a journalist was about racism.
I think it's the job of the British government to make sure that it puts British people and their interests first. Absolutely. Of that there's no question. And that's why people vote. They vote. I mean, the Labour Party. The Labour Party historically was there to look after working communities in this country, and it's given all of that up in favour of an open door to Southern and Eastern Europe.
But isn't that racist?
I don't think it is, no. I don't think it is. I don't think it can be deemed as such.
But if you are a racist, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, it means that you are showing the belief that a particular race is superior to another. And presumably, if you're saying that British people should have jobs above East Europeans, you're suggesting that they're superior. And as a result, that's racist. OK, but you're getting bogged down in the figures again. And as I said, remember what happened to Mr. Clegg when he did that. Yeah. I've given you the definition of racist. Well, yeah. You told me what you thought about the fact that British workers should have a superior chance of getting a job above European workers, whether they're from Eastern Europe or whatever. And that is quite simply a racist comment. So they shouldn't be here. They should leave so that those jobs could be given to somebody else who are British.
Well,
and that's racist.
I haven't argued that.
How would you describe a racist? But you can't describe what a racist means to you. The reason that we got you on, obviously, was talking about your manifesto.
Yeah. If someone's answered the question dozens of times already, when someone's demonstrated with their past and with their policies that they're not racist, what's the fucking point? Move on. If you want to discredit someone, there are far more interesting and relevant ways to do it. Let's have a look at his policies. Let's have a look at what he's really saying. Let's test his actual fundamental reason for doing what he's doing, rather than just sitting there going, are you racist? 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 What do you think's going to fucking happen? Is he ever going to sit there and go, oh, you know what, I'm sick of this, yeah, fuck it, I am. This bigotry-driven style of so-called gotcha journalism has been gaining traction for about 30 years now, and they've never caught anyone out. It's never happened. So what is the point? It's smearing. I know it's smearing. They just want, they take a certain guy and put the word racist next to him and just hold them together as often as they can and try and discredit them that way. But it's been happening too long. We've been deplatforming too many people for very little or no reason. Fucking stupid, it's fucking dumb. There's my mate buying into it, wholesale buying into it. I kind of like it when SJWs pick on each other, when there's this sort of clash inside SJWs, but when they use shitty techniques, I still am against it. Would be against gotcha journalism if it was being carried out on the worst kind of SJW possible. If women are bad at parking, it's only because we are constantly lied to about what 8 inches is. What women? You're a guy. Shut up. Don't wait until you've reached your goal to be proud of yourself. Be proud of every step you take toward reaching that goal. Just be proud you made it this far and you're still alive. You can't even be proud of this colour of your skin. What the fuck are you talking about? God, criticism of racism. It's just jokes. Popular YouTubers and useful idiots. Actual racists standing behind him. You fucking moron. You fucking moron. And the rest is like your house is on fire and everyone is sat around in the smoke, flames and falling debris discussing whether to do anything about it. Were we to become fully aware of our predicament, we would demand systemic change. Systemic change is highly threatening to those who own the media, though they distract us with such baubles as a royal baby and a vicious dispute between neighbours and a patio. I'm often told we get the media we deserve. We do not. We get the media its billionaire owners demand. You get the media you created with the SJW political correct bullshit. Stop eating fish, it's the only way to save the life in our seas. George Monbiot. Here's another contradiction. As part of the EU, we've signed up to the Common Fisheries Policy, which means the whole of the EU can plunder our waters. We're an island nation. They're continental, and yet they get to fish all our waters, and our fishing industry has basically gone under because of this. But how are we going to do that? How are we going to stop eating fish and save the life in our seas if the whole of the fucking EU were perfectly entitled to gouge our waters? This is why we need sovereignty. This is why we need our democracy. We can make decisions about those waters. Just don't need the EU. It would be much easier for us to implement a brighter future without the EU. Doesn't see that. Just stop eating fish. Yeah. Stop eating fish. And then you're going to complain about the guy who delivered Brexit. Real Stories presents In Your Face. Jason tackles tattoo prejudice. Brilliant. Fuck off. Should you know? Should you don't know? Should you don't know? You don't know. This is fucking stunning to me. Like I say, I've known this guy for 25 years. Maybe a bit longer, actually. And he is so anachronistic. He's been saying the same shit since the early 90s. Society has moved around him. The ground has shifted. We have totally different problems, totally different economy, totally different political climate. Everything has changed. And in terms of the intellectual dark web, what's coming out of there is light years ahead of the SJW. They're fucking moronic by compare. The intellectual dark web is brilliant. It really is cutting edge. It's proper debate, it's proper information, it's proper forward thinking and pushing the social sphere wider and wider and wider. Our understanding of social situations bigger and bigger. My mate here, he's saying like, there's a load of shit you don't know. Dude, there's a load of shit we do know that you're not aware of because you're just blinkered and anachronistic, stuck for 30 years in the same stupid peanut gallery mindset, accusing everyone of being bigots when it's not even statistically possible. Unprecedented numbers of people are going vegan, admits KFC in new ad. Actually, half of what I eat is vegetarian, but I still argue with him because of the preachy bullshit way he goes about spreading his information. So the only thing he will actually talk about is reasons for being a vegan. He won't talk about his reasons for being a bigot and anti-white and white guilt and all this. He clams up when I ask him about that. What the fuck is wrong with people? Picture of Nazis. He's found a Nazi demonstration. Actually, I watched the video on this and it is pretty fucking weird. It's quite out there. You actually chanting, remember the real Holocaust, not your imaginary 6 million. They're sort of going, yeah, it's time to kill the Jews again. It is a bit in your face and weird, but I tell you what, all the fucking crimes committed by Antifa, I bet he never mentions those. Fucking weird. I don't understand how someone can have this slanted bullshit outlook. So this is why I've come round to thinking SJWs act as if they're mentally ill. They go from one virtue signalling piece of shit to the next, assuming that everyone agrees with them. On most subjects, they kind of do. Racism is bad. Okay, well, yeah, obviously. Genocide is bad. Okay, well, yeah, obviously. Killing the Jews is bad. Well, yeah, obviously. Hating people for the colour of their skin, hating people for being a different sexuality is bad. Okay. Yes, they're middle of the road views. You're not special for thinking these things. You're an idiot for broadcasting the hypocrisy, fucking mouthing off about people being racist when they're not racist, trying to deplatform and get people handed out of office and handed out of their jobs. That's disgusting behaviour. All the rest, you haven't got a point. You're not at the cutting edge. You're not at the forefront of social development. You are holding us back. You are making our culture worse with your constant bleating. Now what gets me is the sheer number of them. Why are there so many SJWs all of a sudden? I think it helps to think of human endeavour as a race. In any race of 10 people, there's 1 winner and 9 losers. In economic terms, we can translate this pretty easily to the guy in first place is the top 10% who own the majority of the world's wealth. Guys in second and third place are doing pretty good. They're within sight of their ultimate goals. They've aimed high and achieved pretty high. They still get medals. The guys in 4th and 5th place are still front runners in a way. They're above average. They're above the midway point in the race. So all this entire first 5 in the race tend to think of life as kind of fair, a place where you can achieve if you put your mind to it. Broadly, you get out what you put in if you use your social skills, your intellectual skills, physical, interpersonal. If you negotiate well, you can achieve, and they've got the tools. They use them. They're kind of winning. Well, now if you go down below 5th place, you're looking at life's losers. Everybody 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are below the average income, below the average success. The guys right at the back are probably disadvantaged in many ways. I went to a homeless shelter in Manchester where I met 2 guys. They were English, but they could barely speak. They were proper fucked in the head. It wasn't because of any condition. But one of the guys, his parents kept him in a box until he was 12 years old. He was totally on a separate and much worse developmental path. He never stood a chance. The back part of the race, the back 10%, you'll find, I suspect, you'll find are very disadvantaged in ways like that. You can't really account for a lack of nurturing, a tragic upbringing, or mental health conditions from the front of the race. It sort of looks like those things don't exist. From the front of the race, you would think, well, actually, if you put in the effort, you can still get up here if you try. But in reality, it's not like that. There are people who just simply cannot achieve. And of course, there's a flip side way of looking at this. If you look at the top 5 runners, and you look at any period in history, sometimes these people, you would argue they're not very well adjusted. They're well adjusted to throwing Christians to lions. They're well adjusted to burning and drowning people who they consider to be witches. Life's winners don't always look particularly well balanced, but they're always well balanced for the times that they're in. They're always well adapted to do well in the situation that they find themselves in. And we look at the back of the field, and we find these people are not well adapted. And what you tend to find is these first 5 runners tend to be right-wing. This idea that you can achieve under your own steam and life will work out pretty well. They've tried it, it works, they're winning, so they think, okay, this is fine, right-wing politics are fine. And the back half of the field, they're disadvantaged, they're not doing well, they're losing, the system doesn't treat them well. You'll tend to find they'd be like, fucking hell, look at the guy in first place, he literally owns half the world. We just can't get there. We're miles behind. We can't ever win this race. We can't even get into the top half of the field. Wouldn't it make more sense if we didn't have a race with one winner, if we viewed the whole of society as winners and just shared out all the wealth? So you'll find the back half of the field tend to be left-wing. Transpose this onto what we discussed earlier about 39.7 something percent, wasn't it, were people in modern society who have a mental health condition of some kind. If you transpose this to this, they've got to be in the back half of the field. They must be, even if it's the society and the conditions themselves that are giving them these problems. They're more likely to be in the losing half of the field. Because they're going to be exceptions like Stephen Fry and his bipolar. You would put him up near, he's probably in the top 10%, he's probably at the front of the field. Or Richard Dreyfuss, he's got bipolar too. People like this, okay, there's going to be exceptions, but by and large, I think you'll find the people that are disadvantaged by a mental health condition are going to be towards the back of the field, because the front end of the field is all about margins. You have to be firing on all cylinders if you want to get up into first, second, third place. It's as simple as that. So if we broadly say that the 40%, I'll round it up to 40%, the back 4 people in the field have got mental health disorders and are necessarily left-wing because they don't see any other system being fair. And the top 60% are mentally healthy, well-adjusted individuals, and they don't see anything wrong with the current system. The fact that most industrialised countries swing between mildly left and mildly right-wing governments is because the split in votes is roughly 50-50, and it depends on the guys in 5th and 6th place, really. If the guy in 5th place starts to think, oh my god, I'm fucking miles behind, I'm starting to get poor, or in other words, if the middle class starts to dwindle and the wealth gap's getting too big between 1st place and 5th place, he'll start voting left-wing. And similarly, if there's a lot of money in society, like in the 80s it was pretty awash with money, you'll find people start to vote right-wing because it looks like you can make it. Even the guys in 5th and 6th position are doing quite well. So I think we're really looking at life's losers by way of mental health problems when we're looking at SJW woke types. And what's happened is that the SJW wokeness propaganda is now in the hands of winners, people graduating from university with these strange ideas and taking top jobs, filtering down the ideas from the losing end of society. Now, they're doing it for the right reasons, in as much as, okay, we're in the winning positions now, but we still see that people are being oppressed and unfairly disadvantaged, and we're going to go all out to put an end to it. But it's mental. The extent to which political correctness is bringing injustice to our doorstep, the extent to which fear about talking about certain subjects wipes things out of politics. It's taken a sort of brainless form, because of course the left wing's ultimate outlook, ultimate aim is socialism, is sharing the wealth. But if you start to look at elites in academia earning a lot of money, they're not sharing the wealth. They're advocating a system of supporting all oppressed and underprivileged people and minorities. So then this expresses as a fight against the system. There is a problem with this system and the people who run it. The white man is oppressing us. Men are oppressing us. The patriarchy needs to be torn down. And they wage war with an imaginary enemy, laying waste to people's careers and political lives and all sorts, as part of a big delusion, as part of having an enemy that doesn't exist. So really, if we could agree on a better way forward for the whole of humanity, that would be great. But what's coming out of this SJW avalanche from the intellectual elite, in some ways, I wouldn't consider them elite. It's more like it's compromised elite. It's stupid, it's crazy. But then, as we say, in order to behave like an SJW, you are necessarily expressing traits which reflect a certain amount of mental illness. These people in media and academia have absorbed the traits of the mentally ill.
Anyways, I'm not done. Shut the fuck up. Feminists do not want you. Shut the fuck up. Let me finish my list. Patriarchy. Feminists hate patriarchy. We do not hate you, fuckface.
And are broadcasting them. And this is how society's getting so fucking crazy. And an absolute imperative reason why we should not be listening to this crap. We need to reject the bigotry claims, the political correctness. Every time a subject gets swept off the table because some crazy person shouts it down, accusing everyone of all sorts, that's obviously, there's something wrong with that person. It's just obvious. If we consider feminism to be the gateway drug to SJW wokeness craziness, well, there's only 7% of British women who identify as feminists. Assuming generously that the same amount of guys, that will be 14% of the population who almost definitely have mental health disorders and who are in the back half of the race somewhere. Okay, we need to look after people like this, but what we don't need to do is let them run society with some sort of iron-fisted insistence that all the rest of us are crazy and horrible and there's something wrong with us. This doesn't wash for me, and I don't think it washes with anyone, really. The silent majority needs to resist this shit.